plotline. It's an elegant and simple solution to creating context for the player without bogging down the gameplay experience with cutscenes. Now, the problem with this is that in 2002, storytelling was more important than ever in video games, and fans wanted more and more cinematic cutscenes to bookend each level. Hell, even Turok 2 had some nice mood-setting intros.
Powers beyond the comprehension of flesh.
In that same interview, even when in full PR mode, Steinsteiber said some things that would be, raising the old red flags if you took a more critical eye to it. Things that further prove just what went wrong with Evolution. The team is 35 people total, though there are a few more if you count shared resources being used to create tools for both Turok and Vex. Let me stop my own narration right there. Yes, I forgot. The Guana were also developing Vex, the edgy mascot hero who's not as cool as Shadow, in addition to Evolution. And if you count them all up, it means they were tackling 2 games and 6 SKUs at the same time, which is just fucked. Anyway, let's continue. The game has been in development for just under 2 years, but we must also remember that a full year of that really involves the creation of tools and engine technology. The game content itself followed as soon as the tools reached a usable state. It is a huge undertaking to create the tools and technology needed for games as big as Turok and Vex. Yeah, I bet it is. Game dev from 2002. Thankfully, things got better in the futuristic year of 2020, right? Anyway, let's just focus on a particular quote there. They spent a year on the engine and tools, and roughly just 1 on game content, which explains Turok Evolution. With only a year, the game had to be considerably scaled back in scope in some ways, which is messed up to say since it was an N64 franchise. Evolution was a much more linear experience compared to the dense maze-like labyrinths of Turok 2, where you had multiple objectives, collectibles, keys, and power-ups that let you revisit locked-off areas. Here, though, you followed fairly tight paths leading to open valleys or clearings, always moving forward rather than having to do all that, content in Seeds of Evil. While it's true that a series eventually needs to do some different things, for a lot of people, this change in evolution was seen as a step back, losing a lot of the level complexity fans were accustomed to. Now, where Turok Evolution did try something new is in its flying sections that saw the dinosaur hunter saddling up on a pterodactyl armed to the proverbial teeth. While David Levy and the art team had fun doing something different, the sections were criticized for being a bit overused, padding out the game's length. The player encounters these sections several times throughout the game, and they did tend to drag on for a while, as well as not being particularly polished in terms of controls. Now, Turok has featured Dino Riders-like sequences before, but they were always kept brief and explosive, so while a nice distraction, they probably relied on these magic carpet dinosaur rides a little too heavily. It's a real shame that these aggressive timeline problems seem to affect every area of the game, and that also includes the multiplayer. While the Turok series had MPs since Seeds of Evil, the deathmatch never really reached the heights and popularity of Rare's efforts, but fortunately, that was their only competition back then, because unlike those glory years in 2002, there were a lot more titles gunning for that console shooter space, not to mention all the incredible things happening on the PC. Thus, Turok Evolution's kind of underbaked MP didn't really have a chance to stand out. Again, like most things in the game, if they had more time, it would have been more memorable. Out of all these examples, though, there is one thing that best exemplifies all the corners that were cut during the last few months on Turok Evolution. At E3, a build was shown that displayed a huge variety of wildlife populating the jungle areas, which included, but was not limited to, rhinos, wolves of the regular and dire varieties, Komodo dragons, water bugs, cranes, boars, bats, as well as several unused enemy variants. Now, in the final version of the game, all of these NPCs were cut, but are still nestled within the game code. I also have to mention it is common for some unused data to still be present in released games, but even this seems a bit of an overkill. David Levy theorizes that may have been due to either platform-specific assets or simply lack of time/resources to introduce them. Also, it could be that late in the game we had